Terror strikes an elementary school in Phnom Penh. 14 children are killed instantly and 20 more are injured, many of them seriously. Today's toll will be higher than usual because the rocket has found a densely populated target. Sometimes there are more rockets and less casualties. Since the beginning of 1975, there have been between 5 and 10 rockets every day. 5 years of war have wasted Cambodia. A country of fertile soil and lush growth, malnutrition was unknown here before the war, when most Khmers lived in the countryside. But now there is no countryside, only battlefield. Farmers forced from their homes flock to the cities. They take all their personal possessions with them. The Khmer Rouge hold the countryside. The government holds some of the cities. But for the thousands upon thousands who flock to the nation's capital, there is but an empty promise. The city's population has swollen from less than 700,000 to more than 2 million, and it cannot cope with the refugees. There is no room, no food, and only one job for the able-bodied. Phnom Penh, which many regard as the most beautiful city in Asia, is besieged. There are security checks all round the city, but as always in civil wars, it is difficult to recognize the other side, and nobody knows how many Khmer Rouge soldiers may be inside the city. This soldier is searching for car bombs. The only opportunity open to the young men and women is the army. More than 100 men enlist every day at the National Recruitment Center. Pay is poor and sometimes very late. And even then, there is often no way for the soldier to get money back to his family. But for those with little education, there is no other prospect. At least, there's no great distance to travel to the front line. This military outpost is just 13 miles from the city. Some of the soldiers are accompanied by their wives and even their children. Conditions may be bad, but the maintenance of the family unit is very important, in spite of the very real risks they run on the battlefields. 300 tons of ammunition are flown into the city each day. There is no other means of supply. After 5 years of war, nobody really knows how many casualties there have been. In Phnom Penh alone, there are 200 new casualties every day. But they are the living. When the dead and the casualties in other regions are counted up, it is estimated that more than 500,000 people have been killed or wounded. That's about 1 person in every 10. This is the military receiving hospital in Phnom Penh, and is simply known as Hospital 400. Virtually all military wounded are brought first to this hospital for initial treatment, before being transferred to other hospitals around the city. It's a medical clearinghouse. The relief agencies, particularly the International Red Cross, have 2 key roles: the relief of suffering and the care of the refugees. An ambulance donated by the Federal Republic of Germany moves a casualty from Hospital 400 to the city's main hospital. Inside, the top floor is organized and led by a British Red Cross surgical team. The Khmer run the rest of the hospital. Members of the patient's family are encouraged to join in the work of the ward, feeding patients with no families and helping with other simple tasks. The British team are a valuable addition to the Cambodian Red Cross team. New skills are taught and passed on as the seemingly endless stream of casualties flows through the hospital. This girl's legs are badly burned. She is 7 and cannot remember a time of peace. At Kampong Shnang, 50 miles north of the capital, the hospital scenes are much the same. But this time, it is a Swedish Red Cross team working alongside the Cambodians. It's a relatively modern hospital, but the town itself has been very close to capture several times and would be isolated but for the air link. While 1 person in 10 may be a physical casualty of the war, 4 people out of 10 have been rendered homeless. 3 million people in a population of 7 million are known to be refugees. Most of them have nothing. The country has been devastated by the war. Cambodia used to have 3,000 Buddhist pagodas, which were considered to be of major importance. Most have been destroyed. These refugees, like many others, choose not to go to the camps. They are fishing people, and they would rather try to live on the banks of the Tonle Sap River in Phnom Penh than seek the shelter of the camp. But for hundreds of thousands of people, home is a refugee camp. In fact, the camps have become so large that they're able to accommodate not just families, but a whole village. And this brings a small feeling of security to the refugees, who have lost their homes and environment and have nowhere left to go. The International Red Cross, with long experience of the refugee problem, has understood this from the outset and has worked in the camps, encouraging people to rebuild their villages within the camps and try to maintain some sense of identity in the chaos of war. In camp conditions, disease is an ever-present threat, and the threat is greater still to a people suffering from malnutrition. Red Cross workers, some Khmer and some from overseas, a mixture of nationalities, work together to supervise hygiene and the distribution of food, and to prevent unnecessary suffering. Most of the babies here have soldier fathers away at the battlefront. But for the accident of war, these children would have grown up sons and daughters of peasant farmers. But they would never have known hunger. The Red Cross supervises the distribution of protein-enriched foodstuffs, powdered milk, rice, dried fish and salt, mainly for the young and nursing mothers. The refugees in the camps are relatively well off compared to many of those outside, and hunger draws more people to the camps, putting more pressure on overworked staff and limited supplies of food and medicine. Perhaps there will never be enough to go round while the war continues. Not only medical skills are required. This French team works with a Cambodian Red Cross interpreter. The ambulance has been donated by the Japanese Red Cross. Throughout the refugee camps and the hospitals, there is the feeling of an international effort to alleviate distress. While the Red Cross is the most easily distinguished, it is only one of many relief organizations working in Cambodia. Some have international backing, others are simply private individuals struggling to keep alive a handful of orphaned children. The problems are so vast that there is room for everyone to help. But for the international community working with voluntary organizations in the cities, there is no guarantee of safety if the Khmer Rouge overrun the government forces. The rocket attack on the school we saw at the beginning of the film was quite indiscriminate. The rockets, standing as tall as a man, are fired from bamboo ramps on the marshy east bank of the Mekong 5 miles away. They're not sophisticated, accurate weapons, and they hit soldier and civilian alike. So the voluntary workers in Cambodia live with both a present danger and an uncertain future. Now, every grain of rice must be imported into Phnom Penh by air. The Khmer Rouge hold the Mekong and have the capital surrounded. Significantly, Po Chen Tong Airport is well within range of their rockets, and if the airport falls, it will effectively cut Phnom Penh's last lifeline. Nearly 600 tons of rice and other supplies are being flown in daily. Without these supplies, and without the surgical and medical aid being provided by voluntary agencies, of which the Red Cross is one, the plight of these innocent victims of the war would be even more unbearable.